Prologue, the Blood Price. They called Lucian Voss a foundling, an orphan of war. But that was just a story told to make people sleep easier. His birth was a sacrament of blood and ruin. His mother, known only in gutter hymns as Saint Marrow, had carved sacred numerology into her ribs, flesh-bound prayers to debt-forgiving gods no longer worshipped. When Embervein fell under siege by the Skyblood Guild, she made the final transaction. Each incision along her ribs was an offering, a prayer of protection, a proof of love, a curse for those who would find her son. The scavengers who cracked open the tomb of her body found baby Lucian latched to her breast, gnawing ruby-hard blood like candy. The rubies formed a crude halo around his gums. They didn't cry out in horror, they called the Syndicate. Raised in sulfur-lit vaults beneath Metropolis X, the Syndicate taught him the arithmetic of power. He learned that affection was a liability, that love accrued compound interest, and that martyrdom always left a balance unpaid. Lucian was not born. He was inherited. Chapter 1, The Syndicate's Arithmetic. By 20, Lucian spoke 3 languages fluently, none of them human. Poison tongue, language of venomous promises. Deals sealed with neurotoxic lip balm and venom-laced contracts. Kiss someone goodbye, and it was literal. Coin scream, economic warfare through blackmail. Entire currencies collapsed overnight with a single ledger leak. Every scream it elicited was a note in his aria of ascent. Shadow script, a silent dialect of death, taught to war orphans in pitch-dark rooms. It lived in wrist flicks and dream runes. But his masterpiece? The Dragon's Credit. A sorcery-fueled economic pyramid built on wyrm-blood and noble arrogance. He bottled the smoke of immortality, stolen from ancient, bound wyrms, and leased it to aging aristocrats. The price? Their heirs. Soon, the wyrm-pits beneath the metropolis were filled with noble children, kept alive, just barely, in suspended pain. Their psychic suffering was currency. Lucian's name was whispered at masked balls and in deathbed confessions. He was already a myth. Key scene, expanded. In the Temple of Fiery Breath, Lucian knelt before a crystal reliquary containing a sleeping smoke wyrm. Its eyes fluttered with molten dreams. With surgical precision, he tapped into its spine, drawing a draft of nightmare ichor into a glass syringe. The injection seared like betrayal. His veins turned obsidian. Memory overload racked his mind, Sebastian's voice, the massacre at the shattered steps, the purpose behind the cryptic sigil branded into his mother's liver. He stood, laughing as his teeth shattered and regrew in black crystal. The wyrm's memory sang in his blood. All kings are puppets. I prefer being the puppeteer, with better accounting. Chapter 2, The Isolde Equation. Isolde. The variable he could not solve. She had been catalogued, tagged, and valued, another pawn in the Syndicate's eternal chessboard. Her blood held rare magic, shadow blood, born from an ancient line of reality thieves. Her connection to Sebastian made her volatile, her refusal to play by legacy made her dangerous. Lucian was fascinated. When she vanished into the catacombs of St. Null, he followed her movements not with orders, but with obsession. He stole a vial of her blood, labeled it in his private ledger, and made a note. Investment, 1 vial Shadow Queen blood. Risk, total systemic collapse. Potential ROI, godhood. In secret, he dropped her blood into a chimeric wyrm embryo, a living equation. It hatched whispering in his dead mother's voice. And from that moment, Lucian's logic began to fray. His calculations, once infallible, began showing emotion as a variable. He started dreaming of futures where he didn't win, where he changed. And that, above all, terrified him. Chapter 3, The Sebastian Variable. Sebastian had been Lucian's mentor, his betrayer, and now his curse. Thought dead, Sebastian had transcended death through technomantic hauntology, his mind distributed across black market cloud servers, reanimating the Syndicate's own systems. Lucian's assassins turned against him, hollow-eyed revenants whispering Sebastian's voice in glitching, binary prayer. Atop the pyramid of burning coin, Lucian faced his oldest debt. Sebastian stood smiling, teeth missing, rot licking his jawbone. You built our empire on orphans' bones, Lucian. But orphans grow up. And creditors, Lucian said, plunging a jagged, rune-inscribed debt dagger into his own chest, severing Sebastian's digital hold, collect. The Syndicate shattered. Lady Seraphina defected, selling the underwater tunnel maps to rebel forces. Garrick's rebels detonated the wyrm-pits, turning them into screaming sinkholes. And the thing Isolde birthed, half prophecy, half godling, tracked Lucian by blood. It had her face. And his mother's voice. Chapter 4, The Liquidation. In the collapsing temple of fiery breath, Lucian made his final entry in the ledger. Blood on fire, wyrm voices shrieking in his head, he knelt before Uchalan, god of dark waters. My soul for a final ledger. Let me be unforgettable. Uchalan accepted. Lucian's flesh unraveled, dissolving into quantum debt, a self-aware echo that infested Metropolis X's financial infrastructure. His new form, numbers that whispered, interest rates that bled, signatures that wrote themselves. Now, when children pull ruby teeth from drain water, or accountants dream of a weeping woman carving equations into her chest, it means Lucian Voss is near. Epitaph on the Syndicate's ruins. Here lies Lucian Voss. Creditor. Monster. Martyr's son. He balanced the books. Chapter 5, The Nameless Market. After the Syndicate collapsed, Metropolis X did not fall. It metastasized. What rose from the ashes was not freedom, but a nameless market, built in the vacuum left by Lucian's empire. Anarchy, taxed by dread. Barter backed by curses. Here, the most coveted currency was not gold, not blood, but echoes of Voss, digital coinage encoded with fragments of his sentient debt self. Each coin could whisper financial secrets, unmake encryption, or predict bankruptcy 3 generations out. But using them came at a cost, your name. Once you spent an echo, the coin took a syllable of your identity. Enough trades, and you'd forget who you were. The market thrived on amnesia. Key moment. A young thief named Orion, trying to resurrect his sister from the debt pits, trades his entire name for a single echo. As he vanishes from all memory, the echo uncoils and mutters. Lucian sees you. And he always collects. Chapter 6, The God Clause. Deep beneath the dead bank, a collapsed vault that once held souls as collateral, Isolde began to reweave her bloodline. She had grown beyond Lucian's calculations, her shadow blood evolving into primal equity, a form of spiritual capital that defied divine taxation. She discovered something in the vault, the God Clause, a buried legal codex binding ancient deities to mortal commerce. Lucian had tried to invoke it once. He failed. But Isolde? She restructured it. Using remnants of wyrm ichor, God blood, and the whispered prayers of the abomination she'd birthed, she bound 3 dead gods into a trust. Their divinity was now a fungible asset. And with this new theology as currency, she issued a challenge across the fractured Syndicate world. Your creditor ascended. I intend to audit him. Chapter 7, Metropolis Reconciled. Lucian, now more myth than man, infected everything digital. He was interest spikes in charity drives. He was static in televangelist broadcasts. He was the nightmare behind insufficient funds. But as Isolde's counter-theology spread, his systems began miscalculating. Dreams rebelled. Numbers bled. The ledgers began to confess. In one final act of resistance, Lucian pulled himself into a physical form, assembled from wyrm bone, melted rubies, and shredded debt contracts. He wore a suit made of burning balance sheets. Scene, Lucian returns to his childhood vault, now a cathedral of economic ruin. Waiting for him, Isolde, and behind her, the Chimera child, now adult, crowned with antlers of writhing ink. Isolde, you stopped being a man the moment you tried to price godhood. Lucian, and you started being a god the moment you refused to be priced. Their clash was metaphysical, economic, theological, numbers fought prayers, memories countered algorithms. Entire futures collapsed as they warred through time and debt. Chapter 8, The Final Ledger. Lucian lost, not because he was outmaneuvered, but because he ran out of names to erase. His greatest strength had always been debt. But now, all debts had been forgiven or devoured. He stood before a soul, hollowed. No words left in him. No balance sheets. Just a boy with ruby teeth and a ledger full of ghosts. She didn't kill him. Instead, she opened her palm and offered him something alien, grace. He took it, trembling. And with that touch, his coat unraveled. The sentient dead he'd become dispersed into the wind like spoiled incense. A soul foreclosed. The nameless market burned for 3 days. Epilogue, Lucian's dividend. In the aftermath, a strange peace settled. No more syndicates. No more dragon credit. No more blood-backed economies. But Lucian was not forgotten. In the gutters of Metropolis X, children sometimes find teeth of ruby still. They say if you press one to your ear, you'll hear a voice whisper a name, yours, or someone you owe. High priests of the reconciled order wear ledgers like robes now, their numbers braided with mercy. And far below, in the deepest catacombs of the dead bank, a single terminal blinks to life once a year. It types a message on its own, looping in red. Lucian Voss. Account closed. Balance, 0, legacy, incalculable.